An elderly man dressed in simple clothes walked into a supermarket. He moved slowly, observing everything around him, but was quickly met with disdain by the staff. What no one knew was that this man held a secret that would change everything. As the elderly man entered the supermarket, his slow steps and modest clothing drew attention, but not for the right reasons. He wore a worn-out shirt, a faded jacket, and shoes that had clearly seen better days. The looks of disdain began almost instantly, as though he didn't belong there. As he approached one of the employees, a young man stocking shelves in the aisle, the elderly man politely asked, "Son, could you help me find the rice?" The young man glanced up briefly, sighed, and pointed with his finger. "It's at the end, sir. The sign's right there. Just read it." Despite the rude response, the elderly man smiled gently and thanked him. "Ah, I see. Thank you, young man." But he had barely taken 2 steps when he heard the employee laugh and whisper to a colleague, "Look at that guy. Totally lost. Probably here just to ask for discounts or something." As the man continued. Walking through the supermarket, the treatment didn't improve. In another aisle, he stopped near a female employee arranging items on the shelves. With patience, he asked, "Excuse me, could you tell me how much this bag of beans costs?" The woman didn't even look at him. Her voice, dripping with impatience, responded, "It's on the label. Can't you read?" The unkind remarks didn't stop there. As he approached the checkout area, he overheard the manager, a woman with an air of arrogance and a condescending gaze, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. "People like that shouldn't even be allowed in here. All they do is take up space and don't buy anything. Bet he doesn't even have a penny to his name." The staff nearby laughed, amused by the situation, while the elderly man remained silent. But his calm eyes now carried a hint of sadness. He adjusted the empty bags he was holding and took a deep breath, as if trying to keep the pain to himself. To the employees, he was a nobody, just an old man who didn't deserve their attention. Little did they know, in that silence, the elderly man was remembering every word and observing every action. Despite all the humiliation and disdainful looks, the elderly man maintained his composure. He walked calmly through the aisles, occasionally stopping to observe the products and employees. Behind his tranquil demeanor, however, he was paying close attention to every detail, from poorly arranged items on the shelves to the arrogant attitudes of many of the staff. In the dairy aisle, he noticed 2 employees laughing as they carelessly shoved boxes around, letting some items fall to the floor. "We'll fix it tomorrow," one of them said nonchalantly. At the checkout counter, the cashier seemed more interested in her phone than in assisting customers. In the produce section, some fruits were visibly spoiled, yet no one seemed to care. The elderly man also noticed something that others overlooked. Well-dressed customers were greeted with smiles and efficiency, while those who looked more modest, like him, were ignored or treated with reluctance. Amidst all the disappointing behavior, there was one bright spot. Among the general disdain, a newly hired young employee stood out, working with genuine dedication. The young man was organizing a shelf when the elderly man approached him again, this time asking for help to reach a product on a high shelf. "Of course, sir, right away," the young man said with a sincere smile, handing the item to the elderly man. "Thank you, son. That was very kind of you," the man replied, carefully observing the young employee's respectful demeanor. "No problem, sir. Just doing my job," the young man said, unaware that those words would be remembered later. The elderly man continued his stroll through the supermarket, noting the stark contrast between the young man's effort and the arrogance of the other staff members. He stopped in front of a shelf filled with sweets and stared at it for a while, as if lost in thought. To an outsider, he might have looked like a tired, old, and helpless man, but inside, he had already seen everything he needed to see. Before leaving, the elderly man took one last look around. He took a deep breath, adjusted his cane, and walked toward the exit. The staff barely noticed. His departure But that simple man carried something with him that would completely change the fate of everyone in that store. The next morning, the supermarket seemed to begin like any other day. Employees were stocking shelves, chatting amongst themselves, and of course continuing their usual behavior. Some were even laughing about the events of the previous day, joking about the lost old man who had come in and caused a fuss. But suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. Through the main entrance came the same elderly man, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him were two well-dressed men with serious postures and a security guard who immediately drew attention. The old man no longer appeared timid or frail. He walked with confidence, his gaze fixed on the staff, who quickly began whispering among themselves. "Who is this guy? Why did he come back?" one employee asked, visibly uneasy. Before anyone could react, the elderly man stopped in the center of the supermarket and, in a firm voice, called out, "I want all the employees to gather here now. I need to speak with you." The voice, once polite and gentle, now carried an authority that caught everyone off guard. Employees dropped what they were doing and gathered, still confused about what was happening. The manager arrived quickly, trying to maintain composure, but looking visibly concerned. "Sir, what's going on? Why are you causing this disturbance?" The elderly man looked directly at her, his expression calm but meaningful. "Disturbance? No, my dear, I'm here to clarify something important. I think you all deserve to know who I really am." The whispers grew louder. Who was this man? Why was he accompanied by such important-looking people? Then the elderly man pulled a card from his pocket and handed it to the manager. As she read the name printed on it, her face went pale, her eyes wide with shock. "I am the owner of this supermarket chain," the elderly man announced, his voice resonating through the room. Silence fell. Some employees stood frozen, unable to process what they had just heard. Others exchanged nervous glances, recalling their behavior from the day before. The manager stammered, I didn't know, sir. Please forgive me. It was a misunderstanding." The elderly man raised his hand, signaling for silence. "Misunderstanding? No, my dear, it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a test. Yesterday I came here as any ordinary customer to see how people are treated, and what I saw was a major disappointment." He scanned the room, his piercing gaze landing on each person like a lightning bolt. "Do you think you can judge people by their appearance? Do you believe a humble customer deserves less respect than a well-dressed one? You clearly don't understand what it means to work here." The tension was palpable. The manager looked on the verge of tears, while other employees lowered their heads, unable to meet his eyes. Then, unexpectedly, the elderly man's gaze softened as he looked at the young employee who had helped him the day before. "But not everything was bad. Yesterday, I found someone who truly understands the value of treating everyone with respect and kindness. Young man, step forward." The young employee hesitantly took a step forward, surprised and nervous. The elderly man extended his hand. "You're being promoted. Starting today, I want you in a leadership position at this store. Keep up the good work, and your future will be bright." The young man, overwhelmed with emotion, thanked him. "Thank you, sir. I promise not to let you down." The elderly man smiled, but his expression quickly turned serious again as he addressed the rest of the staff. "As for the rest of you, I hope you've learned something today. Respect and empathy are values that cannot be compromised. And trust me, I won't accept anything less than that in any of my supermarkets." The silence lingered in the air after the elderly man's words. Some employees were visibly regretful, while others avoided eye contact, trapped in their shame. The once arrogant manager now stood, with tears in her eyes, trying to mumble an excuse. "Sir, it was a mistake. I didn't mean to act that way." The elderly man interrupted her firmly but calmly. "It's not about what you meant or didn't mean to do. It's about the choices you made. In my supermarket, everyone is treated with respect, whether they're dressed in simple clothes or wearing a suit and tie. If that doesn't make sense to you, perhaps this isn't the right place for you to work." He paused, allowing his words to resonate throughout the room. Then, turning to address the rest of the team, he continued, "I built this company on values. I've always believed that the success of any business depends on how we treat people. Yesterday I saw how you failed at that, but I'm willing to give you a chance. Anyone who is ready to change and learn will have my support. Those who aren't, there's the door." Some employees began murmuring apologies, while others, like the manager, pleaded for another opportunity. "I don't want words. I want actions. Show me through your behavior that you've learned something from all of this. From today onward, the way we treat every customer will be different because respect defines us, not the clothes we wear." He then turned to the young man who had helped him the day before. "You are the example of how everyone should be. Stay true to yourself and never let anyone compromise your principles." The elderly man made a point of walking toward the door, taking one last look around. He knew his words would leave a lasting impression. As the elderly man walked out, the employees remained silent, reflecting on everything that had just happened. The store felt different, as though something greater had shifted within its walls. That day, everyone learned an important lesson. Never judge someone by their appearance, because true worth lies in actions and in showing respect to others. How many times have you judged someone by their appearance? Maybe it's time to think differently. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to the channel for more stories that inspire and touch your heart.